Sit next to you.
Okay, with the meeting of November 1st, 2023, please come to order. The clerk, please read the roll.
DeBella,
Here.
Adel,
Here.
Anderson, Avedisian,
Here.
Pisano,
Here.
Buell, Bush,
Here.
Curry,
Here.
Desai, Drake,
Here.
Gale, Gardeau,
Here.
Gentile,
Here.
Healy, Hoffman,
Here.
Oheb, Holloway, Commissioner Holloway, are you on the WebEx? Johnson,
Here.
Chance, Lester, Lewis,
Here.
Magnan, Mandyke,
Here.
Maniscalco, Payne,
Here.
Patel,
Here.
Potowski, Salemi, Cooper,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Torres,
Here.
Wolf, Carrier. We have a quorum.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
The United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, approval of the minutes of October the 2nd, 2023. Is your motion? Moved. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any additions or deletions? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Public comments relative to agenda items. Report from the district chairman. John, you want to talk about the public hearing?
Yeah, this is John Myrtle. Just wanted to make an announcement that the public hearing for the district's 2024 budget, water rates, and ordinance changes is scheduled for tomorrow here in the boardroom, 555 Main Street at 5:30. Their notice was published and distributed. There will be a WebEx video option as well for attendance.
Probably most people will be on WebEx. Okay. Report from the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I promise I'll try to be brief. I just have a bunch of items, but I'm gonna go through them quick. First, I'd like to acknowledge Tom Tyler. Tom Tyler was just given the Alfred E. Pelican Award from NUIA. They give that to an executive across the country that shows the interest in not only, performing wastewater treatment training techniques, but also training employees and all the good work that Tom has done within the industry. So I'd like to thank Tom. Thank you very much. I'm going to stand. It's a great honor, and they give this to one person every year, and they gave it to our Tom Tyler. So thank you, Tom, for all that effort. Real quick, I'm just going to summarize emails I've sent out. Commissioner Patel, thank you. He's my mentor, I think. He always tells me what I'm not doing right. So I sent out an email regarding the stormwater. I think Jackie and others asked, Commissioner Mandyke asked about the Stormwater Authority email that I sent out in 2018. I resent it. It's very long. Commissioner Patel wants me to summarize this in a one-page. I will do that. But I've talked to the chairman, talked to Commissioner Hoffman about putting that on the BPW agenda. Second item is we talked about the letters.
Excuse me, I think you should also explain that we made that representation to the legislature several years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes, we did. There was a, I don't know what year that was, Chris.
Wasn't that
2016,
20,
maybe?
It was just
19 or 20?
that first got in, so it had to be 18.
You're right, because there was no pandemic.
So it's been I know Commissioner Salemi, this has been a hot topic of his for years, myself, and I know there's a lot of pros and cons to it, and I get it. My biggest concern with stormwater management is that eventually we're all going to pay for it, and we're not going to know we're paying for it. So other towns that are not dealing with stormwater the way they need to be, we've got to resolve this issue, because it's the more sewer lining that we do, the more improvements that we do to our system, it really we wind up seeing more people dump more stormwater into our system. So anyways, it's a really important topic. We've got to start talking about this. The next email is the emails that we received from the EPA on the City of Hartford and MDC and the MS4. And I've said these two go together, right? This is the start of the beginning. The Clean Water Project, Clean Water Act, 1974. We're spending $4 billion to do that. This is the next Clean Water Act, is stormwater. And I think we should get ahead of it. And I really think that the solution, some form of a solution, is stormwater management authority, or the towns. I mean, the towns could do. The towns don't need the MDC to do this; they can do it on their own. We've talked to Craig about this, Krog. Sorry. So, but it's a really important topic before the regulators get down on top of all of our towns and start dictating individually separate little consent decrees. If that happens, it's going to be very difficult to untangle that regulatory web. So it's an important topic. I did give an email. I'm trying to do this once a month just to give everybody an update on the North Hartford. We've got our outreach teams here. They're going to do a little presentation tonight. Janice Ukraine, I think Blue Hill Civic is here as well. So we're just going to hear from them about, the proactive things that we're doing about communication outreach. We meet every Wednesday. We met this morning. We talk for about 2 hours. We don't talk about construction. We talk about outreach. We talk about how we communicate with our customer as we're building our system. So it's communication very important. Number 4, Nikki sent around. He's going to talk about this. We got on the front page of the Hartford Courant regarding PFAS, and a very positive story that was, Nick, where are you? Can you just talk, Nick? The important part of this story isn't what it says, it's how it got on the front page. Nick, you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Just so everyone knows, if you didn't get a chance to see it, the story was about larger water companies in Connecticut, whether they have it or not. And the title it kind of depends on where you live. And we've mentioned, Scott and other staff have been mentioning this to the full board, other committees, about our testing results not detecting any in our water a couple times this year. But it's never made its way to an actual story. So I kind of looked at this as an opportunity to tell this larger story, not just that we don't have it and it hasn't been detected. Now that's great news. It's the best news we could tell our customers regarding water quality. But it's more important to talk to the reporter, and the story is why? Why don't we have it? How have we achieved that so it won't be a problem? Again, it's the way the reservoirs were built, and it's the way our staff maintains them. And he kind of had to bring them along to get them to understand that we don't have wells like other water companies do. They're more easily contaminated with PFAS. So it's kind of a little, you have to explain to how it happens to folks. You see the words PFAS, you got like 5 minutes to respond to it normally. We had a little more time. I was able to give him, and we have some great, beautiful, like real professional photography of our reservoirs that kind of add in as part of the story, and they used all of them, shockingly. They used like 4 or 5 of our reservoirs. So, it's all about timing sometimes. Like 3 days later, there was an article about how there was a lawsuit against other water companies that do have it. So we had to kind of straighten that out, make sure everyone knows it's not us, and here's why again. We were able to kind of reinforce the message over and over again and then make it something really positive for us.
Thank you, Nick. Great job. And so with that, Commissioner, Chairman, I'm done. 6:30.
Wait a minute, something's wrong.
6:30.
Wait a minute.
Is anybody playing baseball, basketball, or
This,
something?
this is a record. Would you write that down, Chris?
That's quick.
Commissioner Bush, I just,
Commissioner Bush.
it was such a short report that I'll ask a question and maybe extend it a little bit. Could you just describe a little bit about what the Stormwater Authority would look like as far as the constitution of people that would sit on it, or how it would be made up?
You could do whatever you want. I mean, you got to get the legislator to approve it, right? That's the chairman was talking about. That we tried to do that in 2018 or 17, whatever the date was.
You thought you were trying to take
but-
over.
But the biggest problem is going to be for our towns. You know, Hartford in the stormwater stuff has a partner, CMDC. Our other towns don't. And so when this is going to start slow, like the Clean Water Project did, and it's going to be, right now they're requiring you to test. The letters that we got from EPA on Hartford was more about responsibilities within this MS4 thing, and it really talked about street cleaning and responsibilities. But right now they're focused on testing the outfalls that are going to the rivers. And what happens is when they start to see results from tests, they sit in their offices and they start analyzing these results, and they start to create regulations that go with it. So it could be, 20 years from now, we could be building treatment plants for outfalls for stormwater. And if one of our towns gets a consent order that is to do something, whatever that is, I can imagine there's going to be 7 other towns say, well, thanks, you're on your own, right? So that's too late. But if you can prioritize the stormwater management issue within the MDC, within our 8-member towns, and we as the board can prioritize those, just like we do in the clean water. We're not doing clean water everywhere, but we're doing it where it makes sense to mitigate the impacts to everyone, right? So the biggest priorities are what we're focused on. But it could be anything. You could have any structure you'd want. I mean, it's really endless. That you could have 3 towns say tomorrow we want to do our own stormwater management authority, and they could do it. They don't need the MDC.
Thank you.
Further questions? If not, report from District Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, just a few things, 2 of which relate to the Colebrook River Reservoir. Just to give you a legislative update, the amendment that we intend to propose in Congress to deauthorize the project and basically remove us from the existing agreement is an amendment that will be put on what they call the WRDA bill, and I don't quite know what WRDA stands for, but it's a public works bill that comes out of the Congress biannually, every 2 years. The next WRDA bill is not due to come out until the fall of 2024. There's no bills that are germane that are pending before the Congress, which we could attach this amendment to. Not that they're doing much business anyway these days, but so we're going to follow up with that and make sure that we have that amendment. The amendment's ready to go, but on that bill next fall. The second thing related to the Colebrook River Reservoir, as you recall, that this board approved an agreement, an MOU with Save the Sound and the Northwest Connecticut Land Conservancy for a conservation easement on approximately 5,000 acres that the MDC owns, in mostly within the state of Connecticut, partly within the state of Massachusetts. That agreement calls for not only the placement of this, basically a restricted development type easement, but also calls for the payment to the MDC of $1 million as consideration for us doing that. We have a draft application with DPH, who has to approve the placement of that easement on this, what is effectively Class 1 property. That's in the works. We've got a draft. We're reviewing that, and that'll go out before too long. Secondly, we have to identify, it's easy to say 5,000 acres, and then you have to identify. Now you got to get down to the nitty gritty and describe and identify that acreage. We've identified it generally through mapping that we have through GIS, and it's identified in big blocks, but we have to break that out into actual separate parcels, of which there are several, over 20 different parcels, and Carl Nasto in our office has done a great job in terms of researching, getting deeds for all the properties, maps, assessors' data, et cetera. So we're well on our way to defining that 5,000 acres, both in Connecticut and in Massachusetts. That'll be part of and is necessary for ultimately for the conservation easement to be placed on the property. So there's some background work that needs to be done, but we continue to pursue that and get that work done. On the landfill, you saw the results of the motion to dismiss that was filed by the state. And I called your attention to not just the result, which was a good result for the MDC, but also the language used by the court in making that, in rendering that decision. I think it was important to note that, some of the, you can interpret it, I suppose, one of two ways, but it appeared to me at least, and I'm somewhat biased, but that there was language that certainly favored the MDC and the MDC's position moving forward on the merits of the case. This was just on certain aspects of the complaint that was filed by the MDC. As you recall, there are 3 cases before the state. 2 are pending at the State Claims Commissioner office, one of which is the lawsuit that I've just alluded to. We're working with, we've reached out to the state of Connecticut, to AG's office, to see if we can't get one of 2 things, either an agreement that the second case that all relates to the landfill, the only difference between case 1 and case 2 on the landfill is the rate structure that we imposed or that we applied to the state's discharge. Those really should be consolidated into one. The merits of this are effectively the same. The only difference is the amount in terms of how you calculate the amount that we claim is due. So we're working with them to try to get out of the Claims Commissioner office and consolidated in Superior Court. Now, one of the things that we expect to be the response from the AG's office is that they can't waive, they don't have the authority, and they're right, jurisdiction, sovereign immunity of the state of Connecticut. While they may be right, they can work with us to get an expedited decision from the State Claims Commissioner office, who does have the right to, or the authority to waive governmental immunity and move this along. So we're working with them to hopefully get some agreement on that issue now that that motion to dismiss has gone away. The tunnel project, as you know, we had talked about mediation. We held that mediation on October 4th and 5th of October. It was somewhat productive in that the parties got closer to our varying positions, but not quite there. So while it failed to result in a proposal to bring back to you, the mediator is still engaged, still talking to both parties. If there's anything that breaks, obviously, we would bring it to you. We may need, if necessary, a special meeting to do that, depending upon the timing. A more thorough report on the tunnel, I've spoke to the chairman about this, we're going to put something on the agenda, an item on the agenda for December. It won't take too long, but we'll have not only a detail on where we are in terms of the spend, both lawyers and experts, and where we expect to be as we move this case forward to, if it goes to trial or if there's some resolution in the offing. So we'll get more detail then. The lawyers, I've asked the lawyers to prepare that. They're working on it as we speak. So we'll have something for the December meeting. And again, I know that's the budget meeting. So we'll try to do that. We'll try to get out whatever information we can get you without breaching the confidentiality and any privileges that may come into play. But we'll probably take about 15, 20 minutes at the I think it's important enough, and I know you do as well, to get those kind of detail. And then finally, we've some time ago, this fall of 2022, we received notice from Star Hardware that a notice of intent to sue not only the MDC, but the City of Hartford and the Hartford Housing Authority for various storm events that occurred along Tower Avenue, the Star Hardware facility. The water flows emanated from the Kensington Street, the old Stowe Village, Hartford Housing Authority project. Basically, the detention pond that was supposed to retain stormwater on their site and then discharge into our system at a certain rate. The rain of it was such that it overwhelmed itself. It's the weir that's designed to have a spillover into the Star Harbor facility. So it's, we didn't design it, we didn't approve it. It was something that the Housing Authority at the time approved, and the City of Hartford, I assume approved. I don't even know if they, quite frankly, approved it or not. But the bottom line is, we're involved in that lawsuit. I've asked our lawyers to expedite the discovery, to really hone in on what they claim, they meaning Star Harbor, the plaintiff, Star Harbor, claim is the MDC's responsibility. I don't think there is any. And once we get the discovery done, we pursue a motion for summary judgment to hopefully get us out of the case. But that has just been filed and it's in its early stages. And that's all I have.
Chris, just one question, back to the landfill issue. Is the issue the original cost we charged the state of Connecticut, or what we discussed in the process of making a compromise that will be in the litigation that you're arguing?
Well, if I might, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Chris Stone, the case number one on the landfill relates to the flat rate charge of 13 cents per gallon of discharge. We then modified that, if you recall, I want to say in 2018 or 19, modified that from the 13 cents for all the gallonage to a reduced rate as the amount of gallonage increased. So it went from 13, I believe, to 9, and then to 7. I think that's the
I think that was the progression, yeah.
the progression. But it's some lowered amount, tiered amount, based upon the amount of the inflow. We did that not only, it's not part of a negotiation or settlement. We did that as part of a change in our ordinances. That's done. And it's that second case that relates to that change in the way we charged.
So it'll be the 7 cents is what we're,
Well, it's 13 cents up to a certain amount.
right.
And then it's a 9 cents from that amount to another amount. And then there's 7 cents from that amount to
Graduated.
whatever
What's
they.
that outstanding balance now? It's got to be over 30
Mr.
million.
Chair,
It's approximately 18 million, it's plus or minus $18 million.
Who's on? Commissioner?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was trying. So this is really, my comment is really about Scott's, the topic of the stormwater management. So I've been one of my favorite subjects. It used to be one, but I think that we have in any towns except where we have to in Hartford. But I would ask that you, Mr. Chair, would consider an agenda item for a future meeting of the MDC to reestablish the regional planning committee, because that's really where that type of work gets done. So all 8-member towns would have some representation on the regional planning committee, and we could try to yeah, I think you brought those to it all the way back. Chuck Shannon was still the CEO, but we went over the new MS4 docs and everything. So I think that's a good way. We at least establish that committee, and then they can try to decide how. Scott. Around, so.
No,
Thank you.
I agree. I think Commissioner Slumming and others have said, we need the town's support. The towns, if the towns don't want to do this, then there's no sense in doing it. So we've got to get the support of the towns. So yes, absolutely agree.
Further questions?
Commissioner Payne.
Commissioner
I have
Payne.
a question for Attorney Stone on the Star Hardware suit. Are we the only ones named? And is there anybody else named? We don't own the retention pond, which is causing a problem. Do they name the owner of the retention pond also?
Yeah, I'll handle those two questions there. First, Chris Stone, District Counsel. First, we are not the only ones named. The plaintiff is Star Hardware. The defendants are the Metropolitan District, the City of Hartford, and the Hartford Housing Authority. You're right, we don't own the detention pond. I would argue that it's the Hartford Housing Authority that owns the detention pond. I don't think the city owns, I'm looking to Commissioner Stuber, but I don't think the City of Hartford has anything to do with, quite frankly, the detention pond. It's on a site that's behind the development. I don't quite know how the development, whether it's subdivided or not, but this would be within area reserved by the then developer in 2003, Scott?
Yeah, it was 2003.
2003, and that would be Hartford Housing Authority.
Thank you very much.
It was a restoration, it was the
Yeah.
reconstruction
Redo of
of
Stouffville, yeah,
the Housing Authority site. Further questions? Not? Thank you, Chris. 7, 8, 9, report regarding community outreach for North Hartford Integrated Plan Projects.
Great.
Scott?
Yes, thank you. So we've got a few things. Nikki's going to talk a little bit about, we did some fun things. As you remember, the Clean Water Project, we learned a lot of painful lessons from 2007 to 2013, especially in full separation. We destroyed people's communities and we were there too long. We built too many projects in such a short time. And the one thing we talk about, and I said it already Wednesday mornings, we talk about how do we build this infrastructure while the community is still trying to live there. So in our outreach efforts, we've gone above and beyond. We've identified. I always refer to as we self-imposed a criteria that the MDC has never done before, right? We've never, ever, ever required our contractors hire 30% Hartford residents as part of their contract. It's a goal, but we follow the same goal standard that the City of Hartford complies with. So we're doing everything we can to meet that goal. One of our contractors is Jeff's here. We're going to talk about that. But Nikki, we did something this year for Halloween for the construction areas. We had some recommendations from some of our commissioners, Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Holloway, and others. And we thought it would be a great idea to participate in these construction zones with some fun for the kids in the community, which was ice cream. And everybody loves food. So we did this, and we did this. Nikki, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. We put up the sign, actually the little graphic you'll see there was actually on you can sort of see it on the picture to the lower right, was on the vehicle, so folks knew it was the MDC, besides an MDC truck being there. But just quickly, there's multiple trunk or treat events, which is where kids come to one place where vehicles and tables are set up. Across actually Saturday, the day it was like about 80 degrees, and yesterday on Halloween, the events featured the trucks themselves, candy for kids, leaf bags, which sounds strange, but the more leaf bags there are out there to catch the leaves, the less get on the top of and inside of our catch basins. And obviously the information on our backwater valve. So, as Scott said, we actually had these trucks go out to the specific areas where the construction is active, which is Durham Street, Woodstock, Brantford, and kind of the streets on Tower Ave and surrounding it, where those 4 projects, North Hartford Sewer Improvement Projects. And as you said, to thank you to the commissioners for trying to pass some of these separate events along. And I want to especially thank Julie Price, who's sitting over there on the left, for helping coordinate this, and our 2 employees who are out staffing it, which is Brian Amenta, who's in the top left picture, handing out some goodies. And lower right there is Jason Bretemps, who you probably all know by now, you've seen out and about. So that's it. That's all I got, and we're cruising along here, so I'll let Julie come up and start the presentation.
Yeah, and it just again, you know, just getting the message out, the backwater valve, getting people, you see the bottom picture, we not only had ice cream out there, but we had our people out there with our pamphlets to explain how important this separation project is for their community. So yes.
Do we have any the same demonstration projects that you showed? In
Yeah,
the
yes,
community?
we had all of our equipment, and we showed people of how it works and the importance
And
of
we
it.
handed out the
flyers and the
applications and the
application,
flyers
yes,
and everything
absolutely.
else. So we should see a major bump in.
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk, the next, this is just one, you know, thing that we did that's important, just a piece of the puzzle. But, the next, presentation from, our Julie and our outreach teams, you know, we have focused on communication. This is really, really important. The things that, we take for granted, Commissioner Patel always says, you talk like engineers, and we understand that. We don't talk, we're talking at the community, not with the community. So that's why our outreach teams are so important, to relay that technical information to the community, since these two women live in the community. So with that, thank you, Nick. It was a great success, and I know we got lots of emails and thank yous, and it was a great thing. And we'd like to do these kinds of things. When we go into a community, any one of our towns, not just Hartford, when we go into community and we're going to be there for 3 to 5 years, we think we need to invest in that community, you know, and little things like this is just a great way to educate young people on who is MDC and why is it important.
These things are all posted on our social media, but the best compliment we can get is when the organizations that set up these events, that invite us, they post them on their own, and then we they share them with us.
Right.
That's the best way to get it out. So it's not talking about how great we are. It's somebody else saying, look what the MDC was here and supported us.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. Julie.
Ask you how many ice creams you ate.
I didn't eat one.
Okay. Good evening. So I want to introduce our fantastic outreach team, which is comprised of Angel Morales, and we hired I sound very loud. We hired also 2 consultants over the summer, consultant groups to support our community outreach services. Corinne Moody of Moody Consulting Firm and Janice Fleming Butler. And they have been working with their staff and with us tremendously since I'd say we started about the end of August. And I think now, Scott, I think we need new titles, which would be engineering translators, because
Yes.
I think we do have to understand all the components of the projects that take place and then make it understandable when we go out to the community to talk to them. And everybody on our team does that tremendously well. We have quite a variety of projects that go on, particularly right now in North Hartford. We have the sewer separation work, there's water main work, there's house connection lining and sewer rehabilitation. All of those have different nuances that they have to understand and talk about, as well as give information about basement assessments and lateral inspections and all of that work that Utility Services does. So they really do a lot. They have to understand it, and they have to make sure that our customers understand it as well. And then we partner with our stakeholders at our local NRZs and community groups to make sure that they're getting our information so that we can work as a community to get what our customers need for their homes and protect them. So I could go on all night talking about it because we have so much that we do, but I would really like Janice and Corinne to come up and talk about their roles in the community so far. Thank you.
And Janice and Corinne have done this before. So, you know, back in the day, in the 2007 to 2013 timeframe, they were engaged in this very same role. And they've done a great job for us. I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls from Janice or Corinne to say, we've got this simple little issue that's being raised by one homeowner, and it's a very important issue because if we don't address it immediately, it winds up becoming a big issue within the community. So that's their job, is to bring those issues back to us quickly and have us address them quickly. But with that, I don't know who's going first, Corinne? Okay, how you doing?
Good evening. My name is Corinne Moody. My role within working with the district currently is to be the the boots on the street. So my team goes door to door. We knock on doors. We work with property owners. We translate the actual project to property owners with layman's term. I think the biggest piece that I really want to share is that outreach is a delicate balance between communication, compassion, and consistency. On average, we're creating 4 to 5, and in many cases, maybe 6 to 7 touch points where we're canvassing the neighborhood, we're knocking on doors, we're scheduling appointments, we're working with the elderly, we're working with staff within the district to coordinate utility inspections with utility services. If there's an issue on the site, if we run into a lateral that is damaged, coordinating and explaining that to the property owner. So I think it's very key that, when you go to the different projects, like currently we're on Branford Durham and as well as Tower North, it's the compassion is making sure that you explain the program and you take your time with the property owner so that it's not a rush situation. You want to build trust. You want them to feel as if they can come back and talk to you. And at the end, you want that 100% customer satisfaction, that they felt heard, and that in the end, that their basement is, that the issue is addressed with their laterals, but as well as if they have any other issues, that you're participating in that process and being there for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janice Flippin Butler, and I would like to as well build on what Corinne said. But tonight we also have Blue Hills Civic Association with us, Vicki Fennell and Calvin Lovejoy. Vicki, if you could come up. One of the things that we had to do early on is deal with a lot of the miscommunication and sorting out which utility companies were doing what on certain street. Oftentimes, people thought that MDC was doing work on certain streets when it was not. So the fact of making sure that communication and partnerships along the line of sewer and water was solidified was something that I wanted to address early on. Vicki Fennell and I have been working at the beginning of this project since day one. From the beginning of this project, Calvin Lovejoy, Vicki, and I met to come up with a strategy to ensure that the folks in this district had the information on both sides. We've agreed to do that and have been doing that effectively since the beginning of the project. In fact, Vicki Gallen Clark, Vicki Fennell, and myself just had our meeting on Friday, but Vicki Fennell and I meet and talk daily. It has been a wonderful experience, especially working with Julie and the internal team. Anytime I have to deal with the business side and I get language that looks like engineer language, Mary Manning has done a beautiful job of laying out an outline in which it's almost poetic in reading and making it make sense, which has allowed us to not have any complaints brought to you all from the business side or the residential side. And so it's been going well, but I also wanted our partners, one of the commitments we made here at MDC to the state, to the comptroller's office in July at our meeting, is that we would work closely with Blue Hills Civic Association in terms of flooding, if there were any problems that arose on our side. And because of our constant communication, we have not, and thought that it would be helpful to invite them here to talk about the strategy as well that they have been using, if any of the commissioners was interested in what was happening on the flood side. So we have Vicki Fennell.
That's all right, they get us confused. Vicki, the way that we handle it is Vicki 1 and Vicki 2.
Yes.
I'm Vicki 2, so I'm Victoria Fennell. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Blue Hills Civic Association. And if you don't know much about the overall project for flood compensation program, BHCA has been contracted with the Office of the State Controller to assist residents of the city of Hartford, primarily North Hartford, who've been impacted by flooding. And we do this through the assistance of the filling out of applications, making sure that the appropriate documents are in order, Usually the hiccup is usually the proof of identity and the proof of Hartford residency, but I think we've got that under control right now. And then we submitted to OSC to the program administrator for his decision. One of the things that I think would be helpful for you all to know is that we hear a lot of things about the MDC. And I always tell people, don't bash the MDC. It's like the police department. You're going to need them at some point, and then they're your friend afterwards. So I always say, you have to give people the opportunity to fix the problem. One of the things that we do before people leave our offices after the application process is finished is they always leave with some piece of literature about the MDC's water and sewer service programs. And this is, again, where the collaboration comes in with Janice to tell them, if you want to apply, here's another program. And I always give Janice's number and Corrine as point people to help people with that particular process for sewage applications, if it's a sewage problem. And also, one of the other things is another piece of our contract, obviously, is community outreach, which is performed by Brother Kelvin Lovejoy. Kelvin, if you want to come up for a little bit, who's our Director of Community Outreach and Family Engagement. And he's going to explain the outreach strategy as it relates to flooding. One of the other things, too, is that I would like to thank Mr. Jellison, as well as Commissioner Holloway, for facilitating that BHCA receive the storm data assessment information, and this is going to help Brother Kelvin out very much as he does the community outreach. So I just wanted to acknowledge you both and thank you very much. Kelvin, it's all yours.
Thank you, Ms. Fennell. Good evening, everyone. In terms of the outreach for the flood compensation program, we started September 1st, and we had residents at our door on September 1st. And I think in September, our number was about 75 residents who came in and actually completed applications. In terms of outreach, we put together the flyer and information that would go out to each home. But then we looked at those residents that have come in and filled out an application. And for us, it was kind of simple because if Ms. Johnson at 103 had flooding, then probably her neighbors had flooding too in most cases. And so in terms of our strategy, we've been going right to kind of ground zero in terms of where people have already had flooding. We have had quite a few homes that are in the North End, but we have received applications from all across Hartford. So we'll continue with that. The communication is extremely important because even though our brand says BHCA, they see MDC. And so there's a lot of explanation in terms of the differences, but also the similarities in how we're working in conjunction. So I think that as we continue with this project, through, again, continued communication and collaboration, we should be able to have some happy residents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicki and Calvin. Also, keeping in tuned of what we did in South Hartford, Scott and I have spent a few months trying to find a space, work with the community and find a space that they wanted in North Hartford. Scott and I has finally got to that place. We met with Steve Harris and the owner of the space in Northeast, in which it was stated at the Northeast NRZ meeting, in which they wanted the space on Barber Street where they can have bus transportation. Scott and I went to that space. We should have that space up and ready in the next 2 weeks.
After the election.
After the election, which is in, and I didn't want it.
Joke
I
for
just
everybody.
decided to say in the next 2 weeks.
That's an inside joke.
But we
Sometimes
also,
you
I
should
also
inside
wanted to
joke.
thank Rhonda Leonard and her team over at Mouth. They've been very helpful with making sure our seniors who are not as sophisticated on the internet receive the flyers from the meeting. I also want to thank the Voices of Women of Color. They had several meetings, one just this past Saturday, where the Commissioner of DOT was in attendance, and some of the questions that we had received on the MDC side were able to be asked of that commissioner. We found that he was very open and honest about seeing everyone needed to figure out how to solve these problems. So on our end, Julie, Angel, everyone's been terrific. I will tell you, the minority contractors have been raving about Jeff's work. I thought I should say that. I met with Colin Bennett and Ricky Rowe about some other issues around Scott really was interested in making sure that the inspectors was from North Hartford and that of minorities. And we were trying our hardest, working with minority contractors and everything. And I will tell you, because of the relationship that they have established with Jeff, I think it was an easier lift than I've had to deal with them in the past around minority hiring. And we should all know that in regards to those inspectors, we have 2 of the 5 that are minority and from North Hartford. So we've been very intentional. The executive director, Chris, and others, commissioners I've seen, Commissioner Alvin at meetings out in the community, and everyone has been participating. Commissioner Lewis has been very good about coming out to the meetings and hearing from what the community needs. So this has been amazing. Julie has been steadfast weekly, keeping us updated as things turn. We have our weekly meeting with her, so it's been nothing but productive on our end, and we continue to want to keep at that pace.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Just a quick, I'd just like to thank everybody because you guys have done an amazing job. I would like everybody to, there's a lot of discussion here, but what the individuals that from Blue Hills and our outreach teams have had to deal with is try to explain to a homeowner what's the difference between this flood management compensation program that the state set up for $5 million and being surcharged by MTC Sewer. Our staff had to explain that and get them to understand the differences, and the coordination between our staff, Janice leading the charge, with Blue Hills Civic has been amazing, and it's been flawless. We've had a few bumps in the road, but we've really lots of coordination and help from everyone. I got to thank you very much.
Yeah, and I took a tour at Blue Hills Civic Association. They have like our information on their front door in a folder, sign-in sheet, and like I said, Vicki and I are on the phone every day, and when there's a huge problem, we solve it together. It's been very nice working with them, I might add.
Thank you.
Commissioner Torres?
Yes, thank you. Just a question. I know that there are a number of steps that are quite elaborate steps that a person has to go through from the time that they go to the association and start filling out the paperwork, and there's all of the steps, about 8 steps, I think, along the way. Do you have an idea of how long it would take someone from the time that they fill their application out to the time that they eventually get reimbursement for?
This is a Vicki question, and this is when I get these questions. I love that I get to call Vicki because I want to answer correctly. Vicki, why don't you?
Yeah, it takes about 30 days that's the way the law was written, 30 days for the program administrator to make a decision. And in between that time, I always tell people to continuously watch your email, because there's a letter that's usually generated from the program administrator to the resident who has filled out the application. They are assigned a case number, and that's an internal number for OSC, who's now working with Crawford and Company, which are the public adjusters that have been hired to assist with claims, values of claims, and such. And so I tell them, wait until you hear from them, and then you can make your decision. And then based on that sheet that's going around, there are three options for them. They can go either through Crawford and Company, which is the public adjuster that OSC has hired, or they can use the MDC contractors, or they can hire their own, so long as the program administrator approves it. And of course, there is a reimbursement if they do it themselves. If it's done through OSC and MDC, it's reimbursable. So we explain that all to everyone. But you know, human nature is, I just put my application in, why haven't I heard anything? And so that's what, you know, you have to kind of talk nice to everybody and say, okay, here's what's happening. And I think once people understand the process, they calm down, and we always say, like Kelvin says, it's BHCA's white glove treatment that they get, so.
Just a follow-up question on
Yeah.
that, if I may.
Go ahead.
So
Commissioner
it's 30 days for them to get a decision.
Right.
And then another amount of time
Right.
for the adjuster to come in.
Yeah, there's,
And then for them to eventually get reimbursement or pay, or whatever, payment.
and of course, and right now, we have about over 200 applications that have been, you know, that are being reviewed. So I'm telling everyone, 30 days, yes, but allow a little extra time.
Have they mentioned to you or told you how much time they think they would need from the time that the adjuster makes the data adjustment estimate to the time that they actually get reimbursed?
Each person, that's a good question.
That
'cause
is a good question.
I was worried about. Each person is treated as an individual. You don't know that because you don't even know which inspector they went with and what, if they had issues within any part of the phase of the project. And that's where it gets tricky. So this is where, like, having Blue Hills be able to be with that person and walk that same person through it from the beginning to the end is critical, because you don't know. Each person has, some people think they're gonna get back XYZ, and that may take a little longer with the inspector, right? I've had situations where I've had to explain to people, MDC is there to replace piping and not, you know, so there's, each one you would
And
find.
it's an education process.
Yeah.
I must say that I've learned a lot about what backwater valves and that's because, you know, again, I think most people, their experience with the MDC is, okay, I make my check out, that's it, I'm done, you know? So, you know, it's been an educational process for us. Backwater valves, sump pumps, most people say, I don't know what they are. And then we get on Google and say, this is what it looks like. Oh, no, I don't have that.
And part of it too, Commissioner, is a lot of it was misinformation, right? People seeing that this legislation happened, and you have folks who had really good intentions, right? Advocates that would go, Julie and I were getting the calls, and be knocking on people's house, and people think that Vicky filled the application out today and she's getting her money tomorrow. So you have to deal with the misinformation and then make sure that people get the information in as quick as possible, because there is some lapse in time in terms of each phase of the process.
Yeah. One of the things too that I always advise people to do is, after even the application is submitted, is if you're not sure, I even give out my personal cell number, because I said, I can make the call, I can send an email, and what I do is I make inquiries on behalf of the residents to the Hartford Flood Compensation email address. It's listed, and they've been absolutely wonderful also. So we always get, anytime we know where that application is, and of course the numbering system helps out in terms of staggering the inspectors who are going out on those appointments, but you know, the residents always know the next step. And if we're not sure of that next step, we always confer with our partners over at OSC to make sure that they get the correct information.
Are there any further questions? I've got a question, Scott. What are the numbers looking like on the backflow valves? Because that's really the secret here on the short term before we.
Yeah,
get the
well, it's
separation.
not just so it's really complicated. It's not just the backwater valves. Our contractors are out there ready to go. They want to line laterals, and we've got, 40 laterals on a street, and the people behind you are getting those homeowners to sign agreements to allow us to come in and work on their private property. So it's not just the backwater valves, it's access to the property, it's access to allow us to line their lateral.
Yeah.
Durham Street, for example, there's 26 homes on Durham Street. We've got 24 of them done. Backwater valves, sump pumps, all that good stuff. So every street's a little different, but in terms of the number of, right now we're just working on Durham Street. We're getting ready to go on to Woodstock, so we're focused on Durham. Julie?
We've outreach staff has canvassed over 300 properties already between Woodstock, Durham, Branford, and the Tower area, 8 streets out in that area. And we're at about.
Julie, can you speak into the microphone because this is being recorded?
Sorry, we've worked Durham, Woodstock, and Branford, and 8 streets so far in the Tower North area. Over 300 properties total, roughly. We're at about 90% success rate in getting permission signed so far.
Yep.
And we're still going. So
Boy, it's really good.
It's really important because remember, we got a contractor who's ready to do work. And if this one thing, this was Janice and Jeff said this, we need at least 95% participation on the lining of the lateral because our contractor's not going to come back, right? We're not going to just line 50% of them and then the contractor's going to come back next week. And so both Janice and Jeff said, and we know this, one of the biggest concerns that the residents had and businesses had in the last round was their grass. So our message was, if you don't let us line your lateral, we're going to have to come back and dig up your grass someday later on. And that message, we got that out there quickly with Janice and Crane and Blue Hill Civic, and really push that message like you've got to, this is a positive thing. It's a free, we use the word free in our outreach. So great success and, a lot of hard work.
Free is always a good.
And what you guys are looking at is a sample of what Blue Hills is sharing on their end, just so you guys can see the communication tools that they're using as well. Okay?
Thank you,
Jan.
All right, good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 9, I'm sorry, that's 9's finished. Item 10, Board of Finance consideration and potential action regarding A, approval for State of Connecticut Financing Clean Water Fund 692-C2. Can we take A and B together, or do we have to take them separately? They can be consolidated. Item B, approval for the State of Connecticut Financing Clean Water Fund 698C. Recommended action, without objection, to consolidation. Do we have an objection to consolidating these?
None.
Without objection, we'll consolidate A and B. Recommended action is receive the report and adopt A and B together.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Yep.
but one
Yep.
second. Let me finish.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt?
So move it.
So,
Okay, go ahead, bud. Commissioner Salemi.
yeah, thank you. Mr. Chairman, both of these items were passed unanimously at the Board of Finance meeting.
Beautiful. Are there any questions? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Is that the only?
That's it.
That's it. Jeez, I'll tell you, with all
6:30.
the yakking, it's really fast. It was a good message, though, so that was a key. 11, opportunity for general public comment. Commissioners' request for future agenda items. Commissioner Godu?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Gardo. I open up today's paper, and on the front of the paper was, maybe it was in the middle of the paper. It was someplace in the paper. No, it was here on the side.
Depends on which way you
Oh, it
open
was
the
right in the
paper.
middle, about the airport, okay? And I read it, and I looked at the maps in here, and I like maps. And I noticed here in the maps, there was a land swap with the MDC that was in the paper here, and I don't recall the board, at least the board hearing about this.
What's the land swap?
Is a 4-acre, yeah.
It's, it says MDC land swap, 4.2 acres.
All right, okay, go ahead.
And it doesn't have to be answered now, but it.
Yeah, we can answer it now.
It's easy,
It's
yeah.
easy.
All
right.
Chris?
If I may, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone. Commissioner, the reason why you don't remember is because it was a long time ago. I know, and I mean, no,
I'm not
really.
that old.
I know, but I am, and it's a long time ago. So I had to say, it was probably 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we entered into an agreement with the.
Chuck was here.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
It was
it's
Chuck
the
Sheehan was the
lease,
CEO. Entered an agreement with the CAA where we would exchange
CAA?
Connecticut Airport Authority, yeah.
Airport
thank you,
Authority.
thank you. Yeah. So we would exchange an equal size parcel. They needed, or at some point may need, the lagoon area and
Yeah, we did that
towards the
5 years
dike,
ago.
which we don't need anymore.
Ashley, go.
The Ash Lagoon, thank you. And then we did need a piece of land, a 100-foot wide strip along the east-west runway. For our clean water project, both on a temporary basis for access in laydown areas as well as permanent, because we have pipes that from the tunnel that run from the tunnel to our treatment facility to get the stuff from the tunnel into the plant. So we entered into this agreement, and it lasted a long time because the tunnel took a while to build. It's now close to being finished. We're now at the point where we can actually do the exchange. That's what's referenced in that article. There's some due diligence that has to be done. We did environmental reports, phase one's all done. So we're getting ready to close within the hopefully before the end of 2023. So that's where we are. And I can distribute so everyone knows the resolution that a former board passed that probably is a lot of different members at the time, but I'll distribute the resolution that you approve that transfer.
Chris,
Okay.
Chris, wasn't there an issue of urgency though on that they wanted to,
Well,
they had instrumentation that they wanted to place there and they were
Well,
extending the runway, weren't they?
yeah, what was once an emergency for them, it's become somewhat less important. And listen, that it just changed over time through just the way things are. It just changed. It took a while for FAA to approve the transfer. It took a while for FAA to federal to approve the extension of the runway. They were in a hurry. We're not so much in a hurry, and now it's just time to do the deal. So,
And what it's composed of, it's along the south side, the north side of our property, south side of the runway, east-west. And we also use that as a laydown area.
yeah,
It runs all the way back.
when we explained it then, and as we explain now, it's a very beneficial arrangement for the MDC. We're getting a piece of property that we need. We're giving up a piece of property that we don't need.
Right.
They're giving up a piece of property that they don't need and getting a piece of property that they need. So it works both ways.
Can I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Yeah, it wasn't written in the words. It was
No,
just
well,
on
I
the
didn't write
map.
the article.
Yeah,
Right.
it was, so I looked at this and says, wow.
I don't, yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good
okay.
question.
All right, well, thank you very much, and I look forward to the follow-up.
Okay, you got it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn is in order. Been moved without objection. We stand
Thank you.